Hi, I'm Krista Redpath, and you are listening to Around the Big Sky in Women's Hoops, a weekly podcast brought to you by Krista Redpath Media, where we break down the game, elevate the story, and champion the female voice.
It's time now for Around the Big Sky in Women's Hoops. Before we get to the scores from over the weekend, you and I were in Bozeman for the doubleheader. And, we have said so many glowing things about Montana State, and we've been so impressed with their consistency and their depth and all of those different factors so far this season. I was still blown away on Saturday. I couldn't believe how good they looked. That was perhaps their best game of the year. It was one of the great performances in the history of the rivalry, a 32-point victory for Montana State over the Lady Grizz. We'll get to Montana because I think they also contributed to that by not playing very well. But holy cow, when this Montana State team is rolling, they are fun to watch.
That's the most points that a Bobcat team's put up in a rivalry game
ever.
in the Brick, or ever, actually.
Yeah, 98 points. The history of the rivalry. It's the most Montana State's ever scored.
And, to put up 98... Right?
98, yep.
And then 54 of those came from the bench. So obviously you take a look at that and it's very spread. So they got a lot of points from different contributors. Sad news out of Bozeman with losing Dylan Phillip. And also Mara Dykstra is, iffy right now. But I talk about those two because they didn't miss a beat with them down. They just continued to just put healthy bodies in there and go at the Lady Grizz. And yeah, that was a good showing for Montana State. They're really trying to build on momentum. And, the great thing about this type of a statement win, obviously bragging rights for the state.
No doubt.
You want to build momentum going into Boise. And I don't want to bring up 2016, but I will.
No, totally.
When Montana State goes into Boise, the number one seed.
Yep.
And they face a surging number 9 Idaho State. So you still have to look ahead to Boise and clinch the regular season, but then you got to play really good basketball starting next week in Boise.
It's so difficult to be able to preach certain things and then be able to execute those as consistently as Montana State has. Trisha Binford was on this show last week, and she said, hey, I know we've been getting by the last couple weeks, but I really challenged our team this week to get back to championship habits, to lock down and let's get better. Let's figure out what we need to do. And she always says 9 out of 10. We got to do everything 9 out of 10 in our habits. So then to say that, practice it all week, and then come out and play your best game in weeks.
Right.
Really impressive.
And 28 turnovers by the Lady Grizz, which led to 38 points for Montana State. So not only did the Lady Grizz turn the ball over, Montana State more opportunities. It was one of my keys to the game is to create more possessions, which is something that Montana State wants to do with those steals. Maybe they haven't been the most efficient offensively this year, but if you give yourself more chances, that's a good look for them. And, they were able to put up some big points. Esme Morales, incredible. 28 points, 5 assists, no turnovers. Okay, 0 turnovers for her in 28 minutes of play. And so it's like she's doing it all. She really is. She's
definitely doing it all. She's absolutely my favorite for Big Sky Conference MVP. We talked to her yesterday, had her on the show as part of our Montana State Minute. And, I can't remember who I was texting about this on Saturday night, but in front of that crowd, that team, you play like that. I don't really see a team that I've covered over the last 15 years in the Big Sky that could go in there and win that game. That's how well Montana State played. So I know, the Lady Grizz are licking their wounds after this. They certainly got ran out of the gym, and them not playing well also contributed to how much they took it on the chin. But I don't even really know if it matters. I seriously think Montana State played so well. I don't really know what teams in the recent history of the Big Sky could go in there and do anything different. Montana State played that well on Saturday.
Well, and the thing that Montana State does well, Coulter, though, is they kind of dictate the tempo. So if you are the Lady Grizz, one thing, it was slow down. You don't need to go so crazy here.
What did you think of that part? Because Montana State, they slapped on their trap, and then Montana decided to press, and it made the game go crazy.
It's not the type of game that they want to get into with Montana State. You don't want to get into that type of battle. So immediately when this is going on, as I'm calling the game, I'm like, oh, this is not good for the Lady Grizz. This is not their style of play. And, offensively, they were on their heels. And then that creates defensive lulls for them. They just can't seem to get the defensive, it's a game of momentum shifts. Basketball is. And so, in front of 4,100 fans in the Brick, which was incredible, you have a fan environment, and Montana State's having all the success, and Lady Grizz just, you can't be on your heels against a team that's that good.
To be fair, Chris Redpath in studio with us around the Big Sky Women's Hoops. To be fair, I did ask Nate Harris, the interim head coach of Lady Grizz, about the decision to press in the middle part of that second quarter when Montana State had already ratcheted up the tempo. And he said, hey, I understand the question. He said, I was begging and pleading for my team to guard because we weren't making shots. And he said, I thought if we put on the press, it would make them try to guard. And for a minute, it worked. And then Montana State hit those 3 threes in transition, and all of a sudden they hit 7 threes in the second quarter, and the roof just basically blew off the thing, and they had 57 points at halftime.
Well, yeah, they put up 31 in the second quarter, which is one of their best second quarters of the whole season. So no, that really backfired. But I think, a testament to Coach Binford and her not wavering and her style of play is they came ready and locked in the third quarter.
Yes.
And they just picked right up where they left off in the second quarter. And the Lady Grizz, looking for identity is big for them right now, and just finding some toughness, because we know that's my favorite word going into Boise. I'll say it a lot on the air. I'll say it in my broadcast, even when I'm calling the tournament. Who are the tough teams?
That's right.
Who are the players that are going to come out and step on the court and make plays when it counts and be leaders for their team?
Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops this week, probably presented by Don Maddox, broker and owner of Engel and Volkers Real Estate. More on Don and more from Don. We'll hear from her in just a little while. Last point on Montana State, then I want to talk about the Lady Grizz for a little bit after this rivalry game. 98-62 the final in Bozeman. That, to me, was the most impressive part of just how well-oiled of a machine Montana State is. They lose Mara Dykstra, who's their best front court player. They lose Dylan Phillip, who Tricia Binford's called sort of like their glue gal all year long, and they didn't miss a beat. And in the second half, they actually were running some different stuff. It wasn't as much dribble drive. It was more like high pick and roll. They were using some of their reserve bigs like Addison Harris in the pick and roll. And to be up 27 points at halftime and then go on a 17-3 run in the third quarter as well and go up 40. I was just so impressed with their ability to adjust on the fly. And it's just a testament to their depth and also just their ability to navigate a game.
I do think that, yes, the depth is really big, and she was able to make adjustments. And I was really nervous losing Dylan Phillip. She'd had 13 in the game, against the Lady Grizz the first time around. Mara Dykstra, obviously, she's been in double figures, 22 times this year. She's been a staple for them.
She's all Big Sky type of player.
And, you look at a Lexi Deaton who's coming along. She had 10 points. She played great. She had a mask on, so she's still dealing with, just had so much thrown at her.
I know, poor gal. She tears her knee, and then she breaks her face. I don't know what happened to her face, but she was wearing the mask for sure.
Yeah, and I just thought, she stepped up and played really nice, made some nice baskets, and just defensively, the Lady Grizz left a lot to be desired for. So I'm going to also say that tongue-in-cheek, because I do think Montana State's great. I think they're really good offensively. I think they put it all together, and they met a Lady Grizz team that was just out of sorts and not defending.
No doubt. And Nate Harris acknowledged it in the postgame. He said, hey, he opened his press conference by saying, I have not done a good enough job as a coach to lead my team to be able to play defense and get stops when we're not making shots. And it's what we've talked about for weeks and weeks and weeks with this team. It's actually what we've been talking about for years with this team.
Right.
When the shots are falling,
they're fine. They defend. They defend.
They look great. And when they're not, they don't. And that's the magic formula. That's what Montana State has done so well this year, is they always defend. So that if they shoot 25% or 55%, it doesn't matter. They're in every single game, and they can win every single game because of how well they defend. The Lady Grizz are not to that point yet.
Well, they aren't. But after the Montana game in Dahlberg, which was the 1-point loss, they tested Montana State more than any other team. Then they go on a 3-game win streak, and granted, they're playing a couple of the teams that are lower in the standings. They beat at Portland State and Sac State, but they held them in the 60s and they defended. So they got to get back to that style, and they put together a nice 3-game win streak in the middle of conference play.
Totally.
So you kind of have to go back to that. They've also had some issues. You got Mac with some her hand. She's all taped up. She got something going on with her hand.
Yeah, Matt Koenig certainly has a busted hand.
Yeah.
It's affecting her shooting, you can tell.
And it's affecting all avenues. And then you got Abby Schubert that's coming back from mono. I mean, she had a good game, but there's some of that. Danny's kind of beat up. So this is the time of year, though, when lots of teams have these issues.
No, that's
We've
right.
seen it on both sides.
That's right.
You have to dig deep and figure out where you're going to get those defensive stops, and you've got to find those gaps, get your hands in passing lanes. And defense is so much about communication and team play. And I will tell you, the team that will win in Boise will be a team that plays defense, because they will have offensive lulls. And if they can weather those by consistent defense, which has been Binford's plan all year, and she's been able to do it, and very impressively, that will be the team that wins.
The pressure mounts now for the Lady Grizz, too. And so much of this is colored from what's happened the last 5 games. That's why I said that I thought that the games against Northern Colorado, which Lady Grizz won, and then Weber State and Idaho State were must-wins. Because you don't want to accept losses, but you can totally... It's not that detrimental to the arc of your season if you lose to Northern Arizona and Montana State. Those are just the cut and dry best teams in the league. Those two they're 2 top 90 teams in the country.
Yeah.
You're just not there yet. But when you lose to those two, and then you also lose the Weber State and Idaho State game, and now you're on a 4-game winning or losing streak.
Yeah.
Now you're reeling a little bit. So that's why I called that weekend when Weber State and Idaho State, when they went on the road, I said it's must wins, just because I understood the position that they're in. If you get wins in those, which you can't rewind time now, you can't go get wins now. But if you could, you're still treading water a little bit. They're not done, though. And here's the thing, though. This weekend is absolutely must win.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It is. And I go back to, I thought those the ISU and Weber State games were really big on the road. But both of those teams have put together some great games, Coulter. I'm more like, you got to protect home court. You can't lose at home. You just can't lose at home.
That's right.
And so I think these are really big. And to look at the standings and look at how close everybody is, obviously I think Montana State's going to, unless something really goes down, I think they're going to be our regular season champs.
Totally.
And then I think you're going to have NAU, and you're probably going to have Idaho in that 3rd spot, looking at it.
Yep.
But the rest of it, all the way other than Portland State finishing at the bottom, is completely up for grabs on the seeding. And so I think that you want to try to get one of those top 6, which we've talked about all year. Well, now it's go time.
It absolutely is go time, and especially because of who you have coming to Missoula this weekend if you're the Lady Grizz. You have Sac State on Thursday, who you've already defeated on their home court. They're below you right now in the standings. Then you have Portland State, who's only won 1 conference game. Like, you absolutely have to win that game. You have to win both of these games. And then you still probably have to go on the road and win the Monday game at Eastern Washington so you can get to 9-9. I think that puts you in a good spot to for sure get one of those top 6 seeds. So all is not lost for the Lady Grizz, but the time is absolutely now. They can't do anything but concentrate on finishing the deal here within the scope of the regular season. Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, Krista Redpath, Coulter Nuanez, sort of lost in now Montana State, a school record 18th win in a row, 25 wins, all these different things, is Northern Arizona has kept on rolling. And I'm so impressed with NAU to lose the sort of first place showdown with the Cats twice and then just keep on running the table throughout the rest of the league. That's great coaching. That's great focus by them. So that was my number one point coming out of this weekend, was that other than the rivalry, which takes up so much of the space in the Big Sky, NAU winning at Idaho when they were on the ropes on Thursday, 70-65, and then NAU coming back and blasting Eastern Washington 88-77. That's a really nice road sweep, and it keeps NAU right in the thick of this thing.
Right, and they have to go to UNC, and then they finish with Idaho State at home. So I do look at them to finish out and to be the number 2. I really do. And you credit them. They've got some tremendous players. I think Taylor Feldman's just had an awesome year. Sophie Glancy, we can't argue with her. The Moran sisters, Leah Beatty. They've got multiple weapons. Are they going to be able to get past Montana State in the tournament if it comes down to that? So that's going to be the big question.
You have to be, at the same time, so impressed with what they've done.
You have to. The last 3 years they've been in the championship.
You also, though, have to feel sort of bad for them because I agree. They very well could just go 16-2 in league, which would win the league 99% of the time any other year. And they just happen to be in the league at the exact same time as this historically great Montana State team. Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops scoreboard from last week, NAU beat Idaho 70-65 and then Eastern Washington 88-77. Northern Colorado with a weekend split. They won at Eastern Washington 50-46. They ended that game on, I think, like a 14 or 15 point run. but then they go and lose at Idaho 77-59. So a good bounce back for Idaho over the weekend. Weber State with the weekend split. They lost at Sac State on Thursday, but then they win at Portland State on Saturday, 56-45. Sac State beat Weber Thursday, and then 71-56. Weber wins at Portland State. And then Idaho State gets the weekend sweep. They're playing a lot better. They won an double overtime, at Portland State, 89-80. And then they turn around and defensive slugfest, but they come out with a win, 50-41 over Sac State. So what stood out to you from around the league outside of the rivalry game last weekend?
Well, I take a look at Idaho State, actually, and I think that, they've won 2 games in a row, and they've been more at the bottom here and there, and they've lost 2 games in overtime, so they could easily have Idaho's record right now and looking at a third place. And so I take a look at their roster and look at what, they played Sac State pretty hard. Now, Sac State's lost 4 out of their last 5. So that should be also some motivation for the Lady Grizz here, facing Sac State here in Dahlberg. But Idaho State, to me, I love the play of Casey Spank. She had a great game against Sac State. She had 12 points and 8 boards. But Taysha Jordan has really come on and shown me that, she's played some key minutes and just had, makes plays when it counts. And they held Sac State to 5 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's a team. Jadia Martin, Benta Vierstig, Katie Penuetta, they're all scorers. And to me, Idaho State could be this team. We know the style of play that they like. Plus, I got to give a shout out to Mark Liptek. Okay, he always keeps me in the know for everything. But
kaboom!
Exactly. No, what I'm going to tell you is going to be lots of kaboom. So this Thursday, his home game against Idaho will be his 500th ISU women's basketball broadcast.
That's amazing.
Isn't that just so? There's all your kabooms right there. I sent it to Joel Carlson because Joel and I talk a lot about Mark and keep up with Tom Schultz. These SIDs are just awesome to me. But he said that's a lot of kabooms, and I went, it is. So
a lot of kabooms. Mark Liptak is a walking encyclopedia about Idaho State history, not just women's basketball, like all of Idaho State history. I sat with him in Reno one night and. He could tell you everything about every women's basketball player that's played there. It's unbelievable. He is like a true almanac of Idaho State women's basketball.
He brought up another key point that MSU is looking to become only the 6th team to go undefeated in league. 4 times the Lady Grizz have done it.
Yep.
Once during my time, which we won 4 championships. I even said this on the broadcast. We only went undefeated in 1 year.
Totally.
It's hard to do. But the other year was 2003, 2004 for the Lady Grizz. That was Brooklyn Lorenzen, Holly Tyler. That was that whole group. But also Artie McAnally, which Idaho State. That was Mandy Carver. So that was his point, is saying, hey, we went undefeated 1 year at Idaho State. But
Mandy Carver, also Montana gal from hails from Dillon.
But just looking at Mark's facts and just looking at this is also something amazing that Montana State could do if they can really pull this off and go undefeated.
For those that are Lady Grizz historians that are screaming and saying Robin Selvig went undefeated 7 times in league, that's correct, but he did it in the Mountain West Conference.
There you go.
Multiple times. Andrew and I were looking this up actually because we were debating this exact statistic, and he asked me how many times Rob had did it, and I said we looked up his whole coaching record, 7 times, but 4 in the Big Sky Conference. People forget this. The Big Sky in women's basketball actually was created in 1988. So when the Lady Grizz, their first 11 years, I guess, under Coach Selvig, first they played in like the American Basketball Conference or something. That was just for like 2 years. And then they played in the Mountain West for 6 or 7 years, went undefeated 3 times in that league. And how about this for an amazing statistic? The Lady Grizz went undefeated 3 years in a row when the Big Sky Conference was created.
Wow.
In the early 90s. That's like the Gene McNulty, King, Marty Leibenguth, like those teams right there in the late 80s, early 1990s.
Okay, I was mid 90s. Like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But I had two of my 4 years. We only lost 1 game.
That's right.
And then 1 year we went undefeated. So I think I only lost like 5 conference games in 4 years. Something crazy. I mean, but what I'm saying is it's very historical to be undefeated.
No doubt.
That part is it's a challenge.
No doubt. One last note on Idaho State: they have won 4 out of their last. They're 4-3, excuse me, in the month of February, and they've won 2 out of their last 3. So they actually sit at 6-9 in a tie with the Lady Grizz and Eastern Washington for 5th place.
Right. I also am really taking a look at Weber State. I mean, they had a nice, obviously against Portland State, which they've been a little bit of the punching bag in our league this year. That's for sure.
No doubt.
I mean, as much as I'm rooting for Chelsea, Greg, it's been tough. But Billy Lanay had 22 points. Lanai. It might be Lanai.
Yep.
But she had a great game, and she's coming on really strong. And Kendra Para, I've really liked Emma Nopu. She had 10 rebounds. She's just been consistent for them. So Weber State, to me, has really played well at times. And so when I look at the teams that maybe are making a little bit of a surge here, Weber State has to play Eastern, Idaho, and UNC, but they're a team that could make some noise in the tournament. I still feel like Sac State, if they could figure it out, we'll see tomorrow. But they're also a team that could be in the mix.
Around the Big Sky in women's hoops with Krista Redpath, proudly presented this week by Don Maddox, broker and owner of Engel and Volkers Real Estate. Let's hear from Don.
I'm Don Maddox with Engel and Volkers Western Frontier. I've been in the industry for about 15 years and started Engel and Volkers about 7 years ago. I handle everything from first-time home buyers to very unique properties throughout Western Montana. Specialize in ranches, high-end luxury homes, and even commercial. So kind of full service in the real estate industry. My background is in marketing, so I really view each listing as a unique opportunity. I'm always thinking about what audience we're going for, how we're going to reach them, and do my very best to find a buyer for each property that I list. Once I learned about Engel and Volkers and the unique marketing opportunities that they have through many of their co-op programs, I just knew that it was a platform I really needed for the listings that I represent. As a consistent top producer in the state of Montana, I bring a high level of expertise and customer care to my clients so that I can get their goals achieved. I really pride myself on white glove customer service, regardless of the price point. I do whatever I can to take care of the clients that I have. If you're thinking about buying or selling in Western Montana, I would be so honored to represent you. Just give me a ring.
Don Maddox, appreciate her for their continued support of this. And if you'd like to get a hold of Don Maddox for any of your real estate needs,
well, visit her Instagram and join her 45,000 followers at make.montana.home, or you can visit makemthome.com or 406-550-4131.
appreciate Don for continued support of Around the Big Sky in women's hoops. Take a look at the Big Sky Conference standings, plus the players of the week and other narratives going on around the conference right after this. Colter Nuanez, Krista Redpath, Around the Big Sky in women's hoops, the last one of the regular season. Probably presented this week by Don Maddox, broker and owner of Engel and Volkers Real Estate. Take a look at the standings in the Big Sky Conference with just 3 regular season games to play. Montana State, wire to wire so far, 15-0 in the Big Sky. They've now won 18 games in a row, and they sit at 25-2 overall. Northern Arizona has somehow figured out a way to keep pace. They're only a game behind Montana State in the win column, 2 games back in the loss column. They're 14-2 coming into this final weekend. Idaho alone in third, 9-6. Weber State continues their great breakthrough year, their second season under Gentile Jackson. They're 8-7 and alone in fourth. 3-way tie for fifth. That's Idaho State, Montana, and Eastern Washington. Northern Colorado, a game back in the loss column of those 3. They sit at 6-10. Sac State is 5-10, and Portland State is 1-14. Not a ton of movement, actually, in the standings these last couple weeks. The teams that have been winning have sort of just kept on winning. It's sort of just the middle part of the league that's jammed up. It's like that 5th place the Lady Grizz are tied in.
Right. And you look at the way the bracket is set up, Colter, and you see your 9 and 10 and your 7 and 8 in the first day. Right. So they get on the floor. Nobody gets on the floor other than the days they play. So, they get some momentum and they face the 1 or the 2. That 3, 4, 5, and 6 is so critical to get one of those spots in this middle pack in terms of just maybe getting one less game. So, it's just a big difference in how the tournament bracket is set up. So I agree with you. They've been close games, and it's been pretty set in the middle of teams just kind of one game here, one game there. Just like I said, we got 4 teams with 6 wins.
Your seeding is so important, but also the overall trajectory of your season is also so important. And that's why this upcoming weekend for those teams that are right there in the middle are so important, because right now Idaho State and Montana have the exact same league record, but one team is trending up and one team is trending down. So that you have to figure out a way to right that. Mm-hmm. If you're the Lady Grizz, if you're Idaho State, you want to continue that. It's the same thing with Eastern Washington. They have sort of been playing above their heads in a rebuilding year, but they had a nice win streak, and then they get swept last weekend. So they want the needle to be pointing up as well. And that's sort of the exact same story for all those teams. It's about the seed, but it's also, can you just carry some sort of momentum into the Big Sky Conference tournament?
We know Montana State the last couple of years has lost their senior night, in the last game in Bozeman. And it didn't bode well for them with momentum heading into the tournament. So you don't want to lose a game like that at home. You want to go in with some really good momentum into the tournament.
Tell me a little bit more about Eastern, because I picked them as my team. I thought was going to surge down the stretch. It's not all said and done. Last week they lost, but it's to a couple tough teams. They lost to Northern Arizona the second game of the weekend, which so is everybody else except Montana State. But where are we at with Eastern Washington?
Well, I mean, how I feel about Courtney Grossman. I don't think she's going to get freshman of the year unless they do like a three-way, because I think Taylor Cherrick should get it.
I think that's right.
I mean, I look at the difference in terms of where the team is, but I have my own reasoning for how these awards should all go. Maybe we should talk about that.
Totally.
Because I do feel like the top team should control those awards.
That's right. And if you go undefeated in the league, you should sweep the awards. You should get Coach of the Year, MVP. If you have I'm not saying they should just go out of their way to give a freshman if you don't have one that's outstanding, but this year, Montana State certainly does. And they absolutely have to get the Defensive Player of the Year no matter what happens because of how good they've been defensively.
Yes, Montana State.
Yes, Montana State has to no matter what. I think you sweep the awards majorly if you are undefeated. But right now, to me, I don't know who it is, but someone from the Bobcats has to win Defensive Player of the Year. They're the best defensive team in the conference. It's not close.
I know, and that's where I would look at Kayla Martin. I mean, I think she's played great, but
yes.
I don't know if she hasn't been the leader in steals. I mean,
Sure.
I think Taylor Cherrick, freshman of the year,
Totally.
for sure.
Totally.
We're kind of digressing here, but I do think that Mara Dykstra should be a first teamer for sure.
Yep. Esmeralda Morales has got to be first team at the very least if she's not the MVP.
Well, and I really am making a case for her to be MVP.
She has to be
because
MVP.
I just, and I look at the fact that I think they're due to give Montana State MVP. Like looking at the fact that Clay Jadine, Lillian Tillman also got it when we thought maybe Darian White was getting it.
No doubt.
But it's just the way the numbers played out. But I do think, Sophie Glancy's a junior. So,
Sure.
You look at an Esmeralda Morales, she's not getting a COVID year. She's not coming back. This is it for her. I wondered about that. She came in after the COVID.
Right.
So, I do think that she's led her team this far, and, you got to look at that.
She's the best player in the league on the best team. It's as simple as that. You don't need to know about the statistics. I loved Coach Binford's comments after the rivalry win. Somebody asked her, what would your message be to the students in the community for this last upcoming regular season homestand? And she said, first of all, just come watch. If you come watch, you're going to love it. You're going to love our team. You're going to love watching us play. But she also said, number two thing is you get to see the best pro in the league. And she called her that. She said, this young lady is a WNBA prospect. She is set up to be the most successful of anybody else that's a pro prospect in the conference. And I just thought that was awesome. Speaking of Big Sky Players of the Week this last week, a co-Big Sky Player of the Week, which, by the way, I'm not ever hating on Northern Arizona winning this award.
No, you can't.
They deserve it, and Sophie Glancy's having a tremendous year. I mean, once again, she averaged 19 points and 11 rebounds for the weekend. Yeah, she's just a model of consistency week in and week out. She's been the Big Sky Player of the Week 7 times, and I cannot hate on that whatsoever. All I'm saying is that the most important player on Montana State is definitively Esmeralda Morales. Sophie Glancy is a very good player. I would actually argue she's not the most important player on her team, even if she is the most productive player on her team. I think Taylor Feldman is the most important player on Northern Arizona. I think she's the one that makes everything go.
Really?
Their pace is set by her. She's the one that gets them in and out of everything. Somebody's got to
score. She's a
great scorer, but somebody's got to get Glancy the ball.
Well, I have respect
And
for
that's
Taylor because of having to be behind Regan Skank and
Totally.
not leaving NAU. I mean, she could have left when Grace and Leah
Yep.
came in, and she had to sit. She didn't get as many minutes last year.
That's right.
And I felt like she was probably going to be the next player that was going to step in. So I do have a lot of respect for Taylor Feldman there. I do feel like I got off course, though, and I need to give a little bit more of some nods to Eastern Washington.
No doubt. Sorry, I completely derailed you.
No, I think
That's
that
what we do best.
I really think Ella Gallatin and Peyton Howard, Alexis Pettis, I want to give some of those players just shout outs because I do think that they've put together some really good games, specifically against the Montana schools. And so I do think that Eastern Washington, I know they're kind of your dark horse, and It's impressive that they're able to, essentially win last year and have to rebuild an entire roster. And so, Jody Gleason with her husband Skip as the associate head coach, I think they've done a really good job. Obviously, they get Courtney Grossman, so that's enough said for me to get a player like that. And then Emily McElmary's coming in and giving good minutes. We got to give a shout out to the Missoula Sentinel product that's given some good time, having her moments, and there'll be more of those as she progresses. But Eastern Washington is certainly a team that I think will be in the mix.
And they have an opportunity down the stretch because they're at Weber State, they're at Idaho State, and then they host Montana. So they have 2 of the 3 teams that they are currently tied with in the standings down the stretch. It is Around the Big Sky in women's hoops. It's probably presented by Don Maddox, who is the broker and owner at Engel and Volkers Real Estate.
And she has done a fantastic job of building a reputation for connecting clients with their dream properties across Montana's stunning landscapes. With a sharp eye for opportunity and a deep love for the region, she's an expert in navigating the complexities of real estate, particularly in high market values like ranches, land holdings, and luxury estates. Dawn is so personal. She's warm. And, I was on her podcast, just dawned on me, what a creative name, back on December 7th. But I love what she's doing with that. She engages with medical pioneers, innovative business leaders, acclaimed authors, and local creatives. I don't know where I fit in there. But anyway, what I also admire about Dawn is, how can you argue with the $1 billion in sales, but just her strategic marketing and media placement. She really owns those social media spaces, which we've seen with 45,000 Instagram followers. So Dawn is really doing it. Visit her Instagram page or visit makemthome.com.
Again, I was ranting, so what else is new? Sophie Glancy, Esmeralda Morales, the co-Big Sky Conference Players of the Week this week. I almost said Go Players of the Year. That also could happen. They are certainly the 2 leading candidates. Update in terms of Montana State. On the defensive side of the ball, statistically, 55 points a game, which leads the Big Sky and is 17th in the nation. Taylor Chirick, she leads all Division I freshmen in steals, and that's helped the Bobcats average 14.6 steals per game, which, by the way, was 3rd last week, into the lead in the nation in steals per game for Montana State. So that's been the key. They just keep on forcing those turnovers.
Well, and Taylor Chirick she's just got an unusual motor. And the way she plays is really contagious, Coulter, because it really spearheads the whole team.
Totally.
And she just has a different pace. So, you could throw her on the defensive team. You could freshman of the year. I don't know if I put her on first team this year, but she's pretty close. She's going to be there eventually.
She will be.
So there's a lot of things that she does defensively, but just like we've talked about with these individual accolades, when these awards do come out, it's so hard because Montana State is very spread, and they have 6 players in the top 15 for steals in the league. Okay, so really, their entire team could be part of that all-defensive team. And when you look at some of these players that come off the bench for Montana State, like a Natalie Picton, she'd start just about in every other program in the Big Sky.
No question.
You look at some of these players role players are getting really good minutes and they're contributing. And oftentimes, because of Montana State being so spread, they don't clean up on the awards because their numbers aren't as higher if you're looking at just straight stats. So if the Big Sky's listening, there's a lot more to it.
That's right.
So, I know they could call in. They could ask us for our advice too, Coulter, because we've been following them. We'd give them some advice on who to put on those teams.
No doubt. It was funny during the rivalry game. It was not funny that Mara Dykstra and Dylan Phillip were hurt.
No.
But I looked out on the court, and Trisha Binford had a lineup in when they were in the midst of their 3rd quarter run. Mm-hmm. That was Natalie Picton, Taylor Chirick, Taylor Jansen, Addison Harris, and Lexi Deedon. And I thought to myself, none of these players start. And all of these players, if you put that team as your starting lineup in the Big Sky Conference, you are still a very good team. I still think that's like the 3rd best team in the Big Sky. Like, you're probably behind Montana State's starting lineup, Northern Arizona, and then Montana State's bench is the 3rd best team in the Big Sky. That's how talented they really are.
They really are. And I agree with you. I've been pretty impressed with Addie Harris coming in to give Montana State.
How about her? She, time and place, right? If this is any other year and you don't have Taylor Chirick, Avery Waddington, and Courtney Grossman, she's a leading candidate for freshman of the year, but she's not even in the conversation because of those other three, but she's been great.
I know. And we haven't, we are going to have to give some nods to Avery Waddington. I mean, she had 20 points, 5 rebounds. She's a player.
Oh, she's a great player.
And she's a player that you build your program around. I love the way she plays out there. I think just utilizing her more. She had a few turnovers that were timely, which is to be expected with freshmen. But yeah, Avery Waddington in the mix for freshman of the year for sure.
Last update for you when it comes to the national stuff. Montana State up a couple spots to number 7 in the College Insider Mid-Major Top 25. They're looking to become, as Krista mentioned earlier in the show, the first Big Sky Conference team to go unbeaten in league since the 2003-2004 Lady Grizz did it. That was a great team led by Brooklyn Lorenzen, Holly Tyler,
Katie Edwards,
Julie
Deming.
The late Julie Deming, certainly.
Laura Cody. I just had to look that team up because they were pretty impressive.
So, and I always go back when I think of how point guards impact the game so much beyond scoring. The number one person that comes to the top of my mind is Brooklyn Lorenzen. She scored like 2 points per game, but it didn't matter because she's averaging like 9 assists a game. She was an unbelievable point guard.
251 assists that year. I was looking at the stats just last night, doing my research that I like to do, Culture Late Night, and I was going, is that right? I mean, and she did. I mean, she was a prolific passer.
Oh, her stat lines used to be crazy. She would score like 3 points, all on free throws, and then have 9 or 11 assists, 5 steals. When you have Holly Tyler too, just give her the ball.
Or Katie Edwards.
And Katie Edwards, right? Inside, outside, just feed them.
That was some of the best years. And then that led into the Mandy Morales era.
Totally.
And, Sonia Rogers. And those were some really, really good Lady Grizz teams.
No doubt. I mean, I was talking about this Montana State team and where they fit into the history of the conference. And I was thinking, in my 19 years covering the league, the teams that are in the conversation for the greatest teams ever are that team, the 2003-2004 Lady Grizz, Mandy Morales' senior year with Sonia Rogers and Brittany Lohman. I think they lost 1 league game that year. Montana State in 2019-2020 when they went 19-1, and they would have got to the NCAA tournament almost certainly if the COVID didn't call it off. And then this team. I think that this team's on the Mount Rushmore, at least of the last 20 years in the Big Sky Conference, especially if they can finish the deal.
Well, but I will say that 2022 Montana State team, which had Cola Badbear and Kayla Martin, then Lamardo, was a part of that. Leah Beatty, Madison Jackson, and Darian White. That was a pretty good team, but I agree with you that year that was canceled for COVID was devastating.
That's right.
And that was a year that Idaho was coming on strong too, and that would have just been such a great championship.
I mean, those the Idaho teams of the Splash Sisters are like the greatest what ifs ever because they just had the worst shooting day I've ever seen when they lost to Portland State, and then the next year they didn't get a chance for redemption because of the COVID. And I mean, those teams should be right there knocking on the door of some of the greats as well. More on Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops with Krista Redpath. Take a look at this upcoming week's schedule on the other side. Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, proudly presented by Don Maddox, broker and owner of Engel and Volkers Real Estate. Follow Don on social media to find out how she can help you with all of your various real estate needs. The teams in the Big Sky Conference, almost all of them at least, have 3 games in the next 5 days starting tomorrow. And the other Thursday games include Eastern Washington at Weber State, Idaho at Idaho State, and Portland State at Montana State. Then Saturday, you got Sac State at Montana State, Eastern Washington at Idaho State, Portland State at Montana, Idaho at Weber State, Northern Colorado at Northern Arizona. Those two are the two that don't have the 3 and 5 because that's their standalone Saturday game, and then they have to play then on Monday. And everybody plays on Monday. Weber's at UNC, Idaho State at NAU, Montana at Eastern Washington, Montana State at Idaho, and Portland State at Sac State. What stands out to you about this? I guess, first of all, what do you think of the 3 games in 5 days for most of the teams in the conference?
I think that's tough, but I do like it better than having them finish up a weekend and then start the tournament on Monday, like we were doing in Reno, which was just insane. I mean, the Big Sky is so spread out. I mean, any trip you're going halfway across the country. So I like the format a little bit better, and I look at if you finish in that 3, 4, 5, and 6, you have a full week off.
Yes.
So you do have some time to recover, but I do think 3 games is a lot, and you've got to be able to. This is the time when you're not really searching for an identity. You're actually playing your identity. You're playing your basketball of what you're going to show in Boise. And so I think that some questions will be answered in terms of how these seedings all play out, but you just want that momentum going into the tournament.
For the Lady Grizz, who are at home these first two games before they go on the road to Eastern Washington, to me, they have to win them. They absolutely have to win them. They have to halt this win streak or this losing streak. They have to take care of business against two teams they're ahead of in the standings at home.
Well, and every team is going to be just so excited to play in front of a crowd.
That's right.
And Sac State, I mean, they've got a team of players that have played all over. But trust me, they're going to like it when those lights come on at Dahlberg.
No doubt.
And it seems that teams really shoot well in Dahlberg. They get behind these fans. So you got to find a way. Fatu Jaite, she's been one of my favorite players. Lady Grizz are going to have to contain her. Katie Penueta. I also think Benta Veerstig she had a phenomenal tournament last year. She's still a player that really distributes the ball well. She had 9 assists against Idaho State in their loss. But all things run through her. And so I think, Montana, these are not just gimme games because these teams happen to be in the lower part of the standing. The parity in our league it's right there. And so I think you're just going to have to put together 4 quarters of basketball.
So much of the basketball narrative nationally, especially stemming from the top down in the NBA, is stemmed from load management, being ready for the postseason. Yeah. That's not an occurrence for Montana State, right? They're going to try to win all 3 of these games and go undefeated, right?
Well, I would think, yes. I would think, but
Let's say they clinch early, though. Let's say they win on Thursday and Saturday. What do you do on Monday?
Oh, gosh, I think you got to try to go for that undefeated.
I totally agree.
But, I think she's reeling a little right now with losing Dylan Phillip. I mean, I think everybody knew that knee was blown.
It wasn't good.
I don't even like to look at people that blow their knee, being someone who's gone through a couple of them.
It's terrible. I hate watching it.
Yeah, it's really tough. And then also Mara, she's a huge part of this team. So there's a little bit of a couple hiccups for her that were her regular minutes. And she's going to have someone step in.
Sure.
And then what happens, Coulter, all lineups are adjusted. So maybe you decide that a Taylor Cherrick deserves to be in there a little bit more, but now she's not that surge that's coming off the bench.
Totally.
So now your rotations are all different. That second wrecking ball crew that would come in for Montana State just prides themselves on just wrecking havoc on everyone out there. So, she's going to have some things to solve too, but I think she's got to try to go for that undefeated. I also think, NAU's nipping at their heels. So you don't want to end up getting yourself in a situation where you do drop a couple or you have something. I mean, you don't want to. I mean, NAU is just 2 games behind, and every team has 3 games. So.
Totally. I think if you're Montana State, you take care of business on Thursday, and then you're basically your magic number becomes 1, no matter what NAU does. And then Saturday, you could basically play for the championship, and then if you win that one, might as well.
I just think for Montana State, momentum, you want to win. You want to go into Boise with the win. It hasn't gone well. Like I said, senior nights haven't been great for them the last couple of years in Bozeman. Yeah. And I just think if you're Coach Binford, that momentum is huge for this type of team going into Boise.
Around the Big Sky and women's hoops. When do you leave for Boise?
I am leaving next Thursday, so I'll be back.
Okay, so we'll be in studio for a Big Sky Conference preview here in studio next week. And we will very much look forward to it. In the meantime, Krista Redpath, Coulter Nuance, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Coulter.